May I invite the panelists to please come? Right. You know what? I'll just stand.
Okay. I'll take the first question.
Yes, sure, absolutely. I'm going to just stand. All right, welcome everyone. And I know Troy has already left, but thank you so much to Troy again for doing the keynote for us. He can hear me. Okay, yeah, I was telling him I was on the board of CIT last year, and we did go through the whole deal flow of 400 companies. Of course, CIT focuses on the Virginia companies, and TEDCO focuses on the Maryland companies. So it was good to hear that they're talking cross collaboration and all that stuff. So yeah, a lot of exciting stuff happening in terms of the economic development of the area. So, and yes, I do agree with one of his points that Amazon did change a lot of things for us. Right. Okay, I think we have one more. Everyone else is mic'd up. So while Atif gets all set up, so this today, as you all know, today is all about innovation and opportunities around innovation, be it digital modernization, cloud. We're going to have big data and advanced analytics. We're going to talk about blockchain, AI, that's Srini's panel. So that's all today. Before I get into today's panel and the discussion, right, about digital modernization and hybrid cloud, I do want to do a small plug for tomorrow's session. So tomorrow we do have a lot of folks from SBA who will be here in person. So if any of you all small businesses and anyone who's watching virtually, if you did register, I would encourage you to come in person if you feel comfortable, because you will get to talk to the SBA folks in person, one-on-one. So I do encourage you to come and show up here if you are comfortable. Of course, we are following all COVID guidelines, as you all know. We have the clear pass and everything. So with that, let me start. We have an esteemed panel here. So let me first have them introduce, why don't you all introduce yourself one at a time, and let's just do a brief introduction. Dan, let me start with you.
Okay. I thought I was going to be last, but I'm in the hot. So Dan Fallon, thank you for having me again this year. I'm the Senior Director of Systems Engineering at Nutanix. So I lead our public sector engineering business, so all of our federal, state, local government business. Been at Nutanix 9 years now, and we're basically a cloud infrastructure company, so providing a lot of on-prem infrastructure solutions as well as cloud capability, both in the public cloud and the private cloud. So really delivering on that hybrid cloud vision. So thank you again.
Thank you.
So Tony Casa, SVP for Digital and Technology Strategy at Harmonia. I get the privilege to work at a great company that does a lot of work with small businesses and JVs, so it's a great place to work. Spent 15 years in the federal government doing modernization, digitization of a lot of technologies. So I had the great opportunity working in public sector, doing great work, and being a change agent as was my primary job. So thank you, Manish.
Omar Bouaishi, I'm a civil servant. I am a director of emerging technology and innovation at Ginnie Mae, which is a corporation owned by the Department of Housing and Urban Development. I have spent about maybe 30 years doing work in IT. It started with my first job at Fannie Mae as a personal computer specialist. That was in 83, 84. And it took me throughout the world basically working on technology. I worked for companies like IBM, Pricewaterhouse, and Khaki. So it's been a very interesting journey, and I am very, very humble at the support we get from small businesses, and the collaboration and the help that we get from companies like Unisant, for example, and others. So it's been a very, very, very interesting work at innovation, especially nowadays that we're considering a lot of new concepts, like future of work, for example. This is something that we are definitely planning, and we're looking at the emerging trends in attracting young talent. Also, finding ways to work with small businesses in a way that is not very intrusive in the government contracting. So this is something we're definitely discussing. And adapting new technologies like AI, machine learning, blockchain. These are all on the portfolio right now of Ginnie Mae, and we are making the assessments. So thank you for having me.
Hey, good morning, everyone. My name is Atif Chuktai. I lead the healthcare business for Red Hat globally. I've been in DC metro area for 20 plus years. I went to University of Maryland, got my undergrad from there, worked at National Institutes of Health for 7 years as an enterprise architect, and then worked at a number of small businesses actually across the Beltway, and working with the federal government, and then some software companies, and right now I'm at Red Hat, which is a hybrid cloud company. And we are working with several of our customers around the Beltway and around the globe on making a cloud a reality for them.
Great, thank you, Atif. So here's how I was thinking of organizing some of the questions that I've been thinking about for this panel. So yesterday we had a very interesting discussion with some of the CIOs on cloud also, and it was also around some emerging trends and all. So I did want to take one step further with that discussion, with this, with you all, since you've been all on both sides. Like some of you have been with the government and some of you have led companies on the digital modernization side. So let me start. I'm not going to go into the lift and shift of the cloud. I think that's commoditized. That's happening, right, at a very rapid pace. But I do want to talk about hybrid cloud, right? So yes, initially, the agencies started adopting a particular cloud, be it AWS, GCP, IBM, you name it, right? I mean, there's so many out there now. But now they're also looking at actually using multiple clouds or having a hybrid cloud strategy and not getting stuck with one particular vendor. Now that does bring a level of challenges, and then it does open up a lot of opportunities. So let me have your thoughts. And I try not to do this round robin, but on this question, let me get your initial thoughts. Maybe whoever wants to go first, and then we can go through that. Dan, do you want to go first, or Tony?
I'm happy to go first,
Yes,
Sam.
sure.
So I had the privilege of being the CTO at USDA for several years, and opportunity at a time when cloud was growing. And I think one of the key things in cloud, when we talk about hybrid, is thinking about the workload that you're using and mapping that workload to the right platform, the right strategy, and right approach. And at the Department of Agriculture, we have many mission areas that are still that at the time we're still learning cloud, still trying to understand it. So I took it upon myself to set a strategy and an approach with a goal to accelerate cloud adoption across USDA. And we stood up what we called a brokerage service. The brokerage service from two perspectives was, one, establishing the acquisition, and two, operationalizing cloud and from a perspective of, let's look at common things that all of the mission areas need, such as security and operational controls. And let's tackle those things at the department level so that each of the mission areas could focus on their programs and their mission and drive cloud adoption quicker without the red tape of the acquisition model and the operations and establishing security. All of those things were done at the department level. So this was our approach to looking at a hybrid perspective of multiple cloud options in the brokerage community, acquisitions that supported them, and accelerating adoption to them. The other challenge that we faced at USDA was the knowledge of those cloud platforms, AWS, Azure, those things, and educating them. So we tried to pattern templates and playbooks that helped the mission areas quickly adopt cloud, understand what security principles they needed to manage to. And what it positioned the agency and the department for was rapid acceleration of mission systems, being able to natively adopt cloud versus that lift and shift concept. So where you had priorities, you could go retool the workload and get it natively into cloud because they didn't have to worry about all those other things, the acquisition piece, the security, the operational, and all the controls that go along with that. So.
Anyone else? I know, Dan, you had spoken about some smart cloud adoption concept, so.
Yeah. I mean, obviously the government policy has shifted from cloud first to cloud smart, which I think is just more flexibility in choice of cloud. And like Tony talked about, the really being able to put your workload where it's best suited. And I think it's the flexibility that hybrid cloud brings. So We're still fairly early. I mean, there's clouds, public cloud has been happening for over a decade now, but we're still relatively early in the cloud adoption. So I think there are a lot of great lessons learned, especially in the civilian space, of what different agencies have done in kind of adopting those lessons learned to go to multi-broker services, and we're seeing the various contracts set up, because honestly that's one of the biggest hurdles to cloud is getting the acquisition vehicles. But not necessarily, people don't have to go, agencies don't have to go all in overnight. And I think that's one of the biggest benefits of hybrid cloud. We still see a lot of on-prem modernization, and at Nutanix we talk about on-ramp to cloud. You really have to get your operational capabilities. It's just not a destination to throw everything in the public cloud and say you're cloud. So there's a lot of that happening where modernization on-prem with some apps moving into the public cloud, and that is ideally what the flexibility of hybrid cloud gives you is the ability to coexist in multiple locations. So you don't have to pick a single public cloud provider, and you don't have to commit to being 100% public or 100% private. It's really getting to that state of being in mixed mode, a true multi-cloud environment, and having the solution that can orchestrate and automate across all those environments, and also give you the cost governance. That's a big thing we've seen come up of focus as kind of those lessons learned of cost control. So yeah, those are just some of the themes that we see across the government space.
Excellent. And I know, Omar, from knowing, having worked with Ginnie Mae in the past, I know you had gone down a certain cloud path. I will just say XX, not taking any names. But then at this point, you have a strategy of having multiple clouds. And I believe a new cloud has also been adopted at Ginnie Mae. But then you're also building an innovation lab which goes across some of these. So any thoughts on that, again, adoption of the hybrid cloud model?
Absolutely. I think for us, in terms of Ginnie Mae size, we are very small in terms of the portfolio that we need to manage, which is exceeding $2 trillion. We have about 170 full-time employees. So cloud for us is a very nice opportunity to adapt. And we have adapted our cloud provider, and we formulated a governance and strategy around that. And we have transitioned a critical application to the cloud. And I will not share the vendor that we have adapted, but in HUD, we have all of them, so there is no issues there. But for us, once we start looking at the cloud and the services that we need and the pain point we need to address, we start looking at the platform as a service. And that becomes very important and new concept for us. We have adapted 2 of them, and we have done them in a very soft launch, and we start looking at what is needed to manage them and govern them and mitigate the risk for the citizen of this country and also for our federal government. So governance for us is very important. We need to have sound governance that looks at the use and the risk, and we need to manage the risk properly. Also, we need to look at the integration between this platform and manage them. And we need to make sure that the continuity of these services and that the SLAs are very, very clear in terms of our expectation. So we're doing all of this with our new cloud provider. And on-prem, I think we're moving away from on-prem because we just don't have the bandwidth to manage a data center and stay current with the hardware and the refresh requirement. So for us, the platform as a service is needed. The small business can look at in terms of what they can help the government with in terms of the governance, in terms of the pain point that we are addressing, and also new trends in application adoption, like for example, blockchains and machine learning and deep learning, and new trends that will be very supportive of the mission of Ginnie Mae. So definitely there is a lot of nice opportunities coming up, and HUD is very transparent in terms of the contracting and the tasking that we have out there.
That's a good thought, Omar. Some of the things that you mentioned, and Atif, I'm going to come to you with that question, since I know when we spoke last week, you had mentioned this. So you mentioned governance. Having a hybrid cloud model does bring challenges to the governance also, because now, and then at some point I'm going to come to you about decoupling of things, because now we are doing hybrid and all. But Atif, you had mentioned adoption, right? Cultural change because of this hybrid cloud. If you can share your thoughts on that, because that all parlays into the whole governance piece. So.
Definitely, and if you don't mind, I'm going to rip off of
Sure,
Omar
please,
what he was
please.
saying. Hybrid cloud has been a focus of Red Hat, and I don't want to be a Red Hat commercial, but I just want to explain something. Long time ago, about 8 years ago, we were all in on hybrid cloud. At that time, hybrid cloud term didn't even exist, Gartner didn't cover, and we were all scratching our head, what is our CEO talking about? I share this that that gentleman was actually right on spot, because now it's all about hybrid cloud. And I want to share that it's actually more than about hybrid cloud. What things have moved on to and becoming is about platform. And that's what Omar was just mentioning. And if you look commercially out there, there are presidents of platform positions. Like Mayo Clinic has it, Cleveland Clinic has it, Anthem has it. That's where the industry is going. Hybrid cloud, and that's where the puck is going, right? So it's about actually establishing a platform that gives you a consistent experience regardless of the infrastructure you're using. Right now, skills are short, right? I'm going to be in the market to get that best architect, the technical guy, to join my services team. Nutanix is going to do the same thing. Google, Microsoft, Azure, everybody's going to go after those people, right? And there's skill shortages. So how do we change the game, especially like small businesses, and especially like, with our contract rates being set by the FAR regulations or whatnot, right, or the CIO SP3, which are not very competitive. How do we get those talent, right, and make sure we deliver on the result? I think we got to change the conversation. Multi-cloud, hybrid cloud, yeah, those are means to an end. End is actually establishing a platform that provides consistent services and lets your business focus on above the value line, which is about deploying applications and deploying business processes, automating them, and delivering a result. In order to really do that, you also have now legacy folks that have been working in on-prem environment and have been doing things certain ways. There's certain processes established. Now moving to the cloud and going to a platform process, that means giving up a lot of control, right? And that, being a federal contractor in the past, makes me uneasy. Like, does that mean my contract is going to go away? But reality is, it's a change. And any change has to be managed from a cultural perspective and process perspective. Without those two pieces, your technology adoption of any cloud is going to fail. Because you're going to take a broken process and just make it go faster in a broken way in another cloud provider, and going to be stuck in it. So I hope that's helpful.
No, absolutely. So that also brings up, now that we have multiple clouds and probably data is moving around between clouds, I know there are technologies like Nutanix and then Rubrik, who are now saying that they can back up to multiple, have DR strategies with multiple clouds and all. Cybersecurity, right? The security aspect of managing a hybrid cloud. Dan, your thoughts on that? Because that becomes a huge challenge now.
Yeah, I know. When we talked last week, we talked about workloads too. Some of the use cases we're seeing, and with the executive order, I guess from earlier this year, it's definitely a big trend in terms of a lot of focus. There was the Technology Modernization Fund. Most of the projects that it funded at the end of the fiscal year, the government fiscal year, were cybersecurity focused. So we're seeing a big investment there from agencies on standing up their security stacks and really moving to the zero trust architecture model for cybersecurity. But that requires a pretty big investment. It's similar to the shift to cloud. It's a different operational model for your security environment, but it's what you have to do in the current state of things. I mean, the cyber threat just continues to increase. So I think in terms of from the vendor perspective, like our view at Nutanix is you want a vendor that supports you in that security journey and that gives you security from the ground up. So kind of the traditional method was you buy a product and you had to apply all these security hardening rules and do a bunch of extra manual labor. there's really not the time or just the complexity of doing that. And when you add in hybrid cloud, you're adding another layer of complexity. You can no longer put everything behind a nice high wall in your data center. You now have apps and data spanning multiple environments. So that's why the security really has to be built in to not only the product, but the entire solution. And then we have other products that you have the security, but you also have to comply with all the different standards out there, like HIPAA, there's FedRAMP, and military has DISA-STIG. So there are all these different compliance standards that you have to make sure you're adhering to for your security audit. So we talked about governance earlier, and security governance is becoming a big thing, and having solutions that allow you to see across all these environments and ensure that you are compliant to those policies.
Right, and that also creates a lot of opportunities, I guess, for small businesses as they look at all these cloud migrations that are happening and re-architecting and retooling. But anyone else on the security aspect, please?
Sure, Manish. I want to talk about it from a couple different perspectives. One, from the governance we talked about and the cultural shift, and then two, from the data. Governance and cultural shift in the government around security is crucial, and one of the ways that you can solve that is by bridging both the business and security folks in the same room from a risk management perspective, right? Is how do we manage risk from a security sense, but still optimize our mission programs through automation and digitization? And bringing those priorities together in the same room to discuss the risk of it was critical to the success of digitization at USDA and at GSA and at DHS when I was at DHS. That helps with then the cultural shift of the folks that are a little bit more concerned about cloud, a little bit more risk averse versus risk conscious. So what I tried to promote was a risk conscious approach to security, and then build around the principles that we already had founded in place from a risk management perspective. Now I'll touch on data a little bit. Data is really going to be the future of security. We have so many tools now managing our environments and so many components that they're all collecting information. And you know, I still remember the early days of server technology and the event logs. What was this code for, and what did it mean? You know, you had to really understand the event logs and what it was telling you. And those were challenging days, right? Well, it's even worse today. You know, so now you have more information related to those codes. You may know what those codes are, but how do you parse all that information in a timely manner to know where your risk is? And you have your firewalls, you have intrusion detection, you have Nutanix, you have, you know, all of your tools that are running in your security to protect your environment. How do you bring data in to look for user behavioral patterns and build around that, and allow your machine learning tools and AI to come into play with security? I think those are crucial areas and how we're going to protect our infrastructure in the future. So.
In terms of the government, or at least for the departments I work for, we have a couple of things that control how we conduct business, and that is this acronym, the FedRAMP. So FedRAMP needs to be very familiar to a small business, and also GovCloud, because that's what we throw. That's what we ask for. Like, it has to be GovCloud, it has to be FedRAMP, it has to secure an ATO. So if a small business is not familiar with the process to conduct an application throughout the implementation life cycle and secure an ATO, then that's problematic. So those are very important concepts to have. In terms of cybersecurity, and thankfully I'm not responsible for that at Ginnie Mae, my colleagues, our CISO is the one that has that in his purview. So, and we work in collaboration, especially in the innovation space. But for me, I don't want to restrict innovation with security requirements. I want it to be a little bit free in terms of the thinking, in terms of what we brought to the government. So I believe I'm the only one who is using a commercial cloud for for his POCs and POVs and POTs, and those are the proof of concept and technology and value. So for us, at least for me, I try to be not very restrictive, and not to say that security is not important. It is very important. For something to be productionalized, it has to exist in GovCloud. it has to be FedRAMP certified, it has to pass our due diligence and security, and it has to have an ATO to be productionalized and available for use. So those are very important concepts, and on top of it, you have to go through a governance process that has all the gate review and all the folks that validate what you do, from our solution architect to our enterprise architect to our director of operation. Those are folks that sit in the ARB review, which is an application review board, and look at your application and vet it and push it back, or you get the approval to start moving toward production and eventually have the O&M. For me, I am the advocate for small business. I support, I give ideas. So for us, small business for me is very important. Small business is really the backbone of this nation. We believe in what you guys are doing. For me, I'm definitely an advocate. HUD has a support business advocate. So when I put a contract out there, we have to fight not for it to be a small business. And I usually don't, because for me, if a small business has the aptitude and skill set to do the work, I don't want big names. I want a good result for the government. So for me, I believe in small business, and I am going to be creating a platform at Ginnie Mae, and also I'm pushing hard to do the same, for small business to come and start collaborating, start giving ideas, start showing their strength in terms of addressing pain point that HUD has or Ginnie Mae has. And I will make the announcement with Thai DC to share it with the small business. So this platform, it's almost like a crowdsourcing ideation platform. So I am working on that, and hopefully it will be announced. And the first campaign I am going to announce is on the blockchain campaign. So you will see that coming, and hopefully we will get a lot of participation from small business. And you guys can think that definitely, I mean, do believe that HUD, the Department of Housing, has your vested interests at heart, and they want small business to succeed, and they don't want to just have their business to go to the big outfits out there, you know. So for us, you just have to make sure that you produce good results, and that's very important. And so we can at least ensure that our stewardship of taxpayers' money is met, and that's what we do. We do an oversight. But for me, definitely, for small business, the Innovation Lab is definitely looking for collaboration. And I had a lot of colleagues here. Harmonia came to us and had been discussing good concept, Unisant, and others. So definitely, I look forward to working with all of you. Thanks, Manish.
Thank you, Omar. So your thoughts on security, maybe Atif?
Yeah, so I'll just share the statistics with you. So far, the workloads that have moved to the cloud are only 20%. There's 80% workload that are truly hybrid, that are still going to have to move to the cloud. This was estimated by Gartner, okay? So, and when we talk about hybrid, what has happened is our exposure or attack vector has gotten larger, because now it's not just my on-prem, it's 3 or 4 different clouds that I'm going to be potentially running in. So my security posture has to evolve accordingly, right? And I cannot use those event-based tools, really, to manage across now 5 different environments. So in that situation, you have to look at essentially, how can I approach from a perspective of a platform? Having, again, a consistent environment, regardless of the infrastructure you're running in, and then securing that platform to drive innovation. Similarly, we actually, Red Hat, have partnered with a lot of different vendors, Nutanix being one, to help build out security postures for those platforms using Ansible playbooks. We work with NIST as well, who have built out HIPAA compliance playbook, DISA-STIG playbook, that is available for free to start your baseline off of. And Red Hat does 99.999% of its business through small businesses or distributors or resellers, right? So we consider ourselves as, you know, the change agent for the world to bring open to the world, but we need partners. We need partners across the globe to help us carry that message and be able to provide the local expertise and security expertise, build on technology that we are providing to the industry.
So excellent. That I do want to come to that also in terms of the partnerships or in terms of some of the opportunities that are probably coming out. But before I go there, one last round of information around some of the use cases that you all might have either done already or are in the process of implementing at agencies or conceptualizing and all, and staying back on the security aspect also. So one of the things what we've seen, there was this ATO, right, authorization to operate, but now the government is saying CATO, continuous authorization to operate, given the whole hybrid cloud and so any thoughts on that in terms of doing security in a pretty much, or at least the compliance of whatever workloads or infrastructure is running in a continuous process? Any thoughts on that? And then we can go into use cases also. Any one of you?
Well, I'll start on this one. For us, the way we are doing innovation at Ginnie Mae, we start with the POC, proof of concept, and we do it without a lot of restriction, and we descope all the complex parts of it. Now, when the demonstration happened on that POC and it's approved, and we got the clearance to proceed, so we go and we issue another task in for a pilot. Or we can ask for a full implementation. So for us, the ATO, and I will presume the CTO, is just to make sure that the O&M is also considered, because we don't want a business to deliver something and then we start battling who's going to do the maintenance afterward. So for us, the concept at the government right now, especially as my agency, is to consider a proof of concept. So we test the water, we make sure that we understand what we're doing, and then we proceed to the pilot. And if the pilot is successful with limited participation from the user of that solution, we proceed to production, and then the O&M, and then we have folks positioned to maintain and proceed and manage all aspects of that application. So for us, definitely, we cannot do anything without having secure an ATO. You cannot have an application in our space being used by the citizen or being used by our partners that is not well vetted, that is secure, and the data is protected, and the governance had happened, and we have documented the fact that it has proceeded through proper approval process. So for us, that's very important, and that's where small business have the burden to learn. You have to learn how to do that. You have to learn the step-by-step process to deploy an application within the government, to learn the business, and also to learn our business. A lot of small business are having difficulty understanding what we do. So you have to understand, if you come to Ginnie Mae or any other program office or any department within the government, you need to understand what they do, what is their business, what is their mission, what are the processes, and most of the stuff is available. You can also ask for an introduction to our business. As a small business, we have done that. We've gone to a lot of forums where we have shared the nature of our business and what we do. So it's very clear to a small business how to target opportunities and where they can be very successful. Because you don't want to come in and you have an opportunity and you fail at it. Make sure that you have the proper skill set to ensure a very good result, and also to ensure the continuity of your service within the government space. So I hope that helps, Manish.
Absolutely. So coming on the use cases side now, if any one of you want to discuss any use cases, I know, Tony, you had a use case with USDA in terms of data sharing with...
Yeah, I did. So data sharing is becoming predominant out there in the federal market, and thinking about how agencies, you heard about it from the CIOs yesterday, how agencies can share data to get to outcomes, right? And I always think about waste, fraud, and abuse as one of the core components, but there's many opportunities out there to share data. Food and nutrition service with healthcare, right? If you're setting up school programs for lunch for our children, how great would it be if food and nutrition service could support data from healthcare and drive nutrition examples and strategies for children, right? And get them healthier. Those opportunities are out there in a great way to share data across the federal sector, and what cloud brings is the ability to do so, right? We can do it very fast. At USDA, ARS, the research service, agricultural research service, used to crunch data all the time on-prem, right? And that was challenging. That was really challenging. And then once the data set was used and they chopped it up and cut it up, then we had to refresh it. Not very productive, not very fast. So it took a long time. So enabling that in the cloud allowed us to do it much more fast, expedient. And the researchers were able to get results much quicker. So cloud is going to bring that capability from a compute and a scale perspective. The other thing is, from a cost perspective, it's going to allow us to be elastic, where we can scale up and scale down if you use the native cloud capabilities, right? And that's critical. But back to waste, fraud, and abuse. That's a big thing with COVID today, right? A lot of money has been sent out from small business. A lot of money has been sent out to citizens across the country, and some of that money has gone to bad actors out there. And how do we do a better job at preventing that and making sure that tax dollar gets used, effectively and efficiently for its intent? I think sharing data across the different varying, tax agencies, healthcare, there's ways to pull segments of that data that allows us to look at it, and cloud's going to bring that to the table today and try to prevent those waste, fraud, and abuse cases and try to ensure the money gets to the right citizen.
Anyone else? Yes.
Yeah, I'll add to build on that on a use case. So if you look at cloud, I think of cloud as infrastructure layer, then platform layer, then data layer, and somewhere in between is a security layer. These are all different control planes for any application that is going to run on a hybrid cloud. I worked a few years ago, previous to COVID, with Center for Disease Control, who wanted to set up a disease surveillance program, a new way of getting information from different hospitals, collecting that data, filtering through that data, and then feeding that data truly as a service to the programs that set policies within CDC that goes to then HHS. And they say, well, we have kidney disease on the rise. We need programs to curtail blood pressure problems that is leading to kidney dialysis, blah, blah, right? So when I started with CDC on this project, we looked at different options on how we can do that. What was very obvious to us, that we have so many endpoints that we need to consume data from. If we build one-on-one interaction, it's just not going to scale and be a nightmare to manage. And they wanted real-time or near real-time information as well. So what they really embarked on was getting their security folks, getting their operation folks, and their app development folks to be okay with not owning the data, but really exposing the data as a service and treating data as a product that they provide to other entities within the organization. And cloud essentially help bring together these different entities within CDC and these rural hospitals and other large hospital systems that by doing business with CMS are required to provide that data together in an easier control plane that, hey, everybody can understand that how we can get to this point in the cloud because it was consistent. And then using, again, a platform that they were able to distribute out. Either you dump the data somewhere, or you can leverage this piece of platform and we will pull that data out. And it's a great case study. It's available off of CDC website. Red Hat was obviously a big part of it in standing up that platform and creating that data as a service layer and democratizing the data.
No, absolutely, and that brings up a good point, Atif. Very true that the whole move to hybrid cloud has brought in a lot of other innovation also in terms of cloud native services. A number of them which were not available prior to the whole IaaS, SaaS, PaaS. There's so many layers now. And then of course, like one of the use cases I can share, what we are doing for DHS is we kind of manage all the ports and people coming into the US, and we get literally the Border Patrol folks who are querying for a particular person coming in, we get literally 5 seconds to reply back whether to get that person in or not. And that is all happening behind the scenes because we are able to process petabytes of data very fast, come up with the results, and get the query replied, right? So it's all the innovation that has happened because of the whole move to clouds and various storage technologies, and the whole 9 yards has changed now. So with that, since we have only like 5 to 10 minutes left, let me come to the last question, which is probably on the mind of all the small businesses here, opportunities. Dan, I know Nutanix has done exceptionally well. You're in the federal government also. The technology is booming right now. It's like bleeding edge. How do you work with the small businesses? Or let me put it that way. How can the small business community work with Nutanix? Because I know you work with a lot of small businesses in terms of implementation of these technologies. So any thoughts? And then this one will be a round robin where I'm going to ask opportunities for small businesses from everyone.
Yeah, no, I actually, before Nutanix, I was at a small reseller, and that's similar to Red Hat. We're pretty much 100% channel. So that means all of our business with not only the government, but also commercial entities goes through a reseller channel partner. And most of those are smaller companies. So that's kind of the number one way you can engage with us is reselling product. But a lot of companies out there aren't in that product business, they're more on the services side. And there's a big need for there. We've talked a lot about the skills and talent shortage, especially when it comes to cloud, security, redeveloping applications. So there's a big need there for expertise. We have a lot of projects across the federal government and our other customers as well, healthcare and enterprise entities, where we need a good partner that can go in and deliver the full solution. Nutanix plays a big role as kind of the foundation for the cloud infrastructure, but there are a lot of other components. Like when we talk, zero trust is a hot term in the federal government right now, and everyone's kind of looking for that silver bullet. There is no single solution to say, oh, I've done zero trust. Very similar to cloud. Even if you say, all right, I'm moving to a public cloud, there are multiple pieces and parts involved. So that's where I think where small businesses can come in, provide that expertise to integrate and implement the full solution. And when we find someone that's good at that, we really value them and look to leverage them across multiple contracts. So that's probably the two big ways you can engage with us.
Great, thank you.
So I'm so lucky to work for Harmonia, who really focuses on the protege mentor, kind of relationship with small business, and that was a big attraction for me joining Harmonia. And I love what they do. I love the JV model that we have, and trying to help grow small businesses into larger entities and deliver value to the government. I think you mentioned a couple of times results. Adding value and delivering results is always crucial to maintaining those relationships and ensuring that we're doing good work for our customers. I think another mention I'll make, I was talking to Mark earlier, our CTO, and we talked a lot about how the small business engage and who should they engage with, right? I think companies that do work share and have a culture of supporting small business and supporting work share is important for small businesses to know to engage. Do your research, do your homework, look across the board and see who is out there that is really doing work share and helping small businesses grow and promoting that. So,
great, thank you.
For this one, I'm going to be honest and transparent with the small business. In terms of somebody like me who creates those tasking, we are not allowed to talk about them. So, we just cannot. We think about them internally, we brainstorm with our leadership, and we come up with the package that we think should be sent as an RFQ or RFI. We really cannot share it. It's just impossible unless I want to break the law. So that's one. But for me, with small business, what you need to do, and especially as I mentioned earlier, you have an advocate in the Department of Housing for small business. They are looking after your best interests. But what you need to do as a small business is continuous monitoring of the tasking that are submitted. So for me, they are not timed, they come in whenever they are ready to be published. So you might miss it if you are not monitoring all the tasking that get submitted by the Department of Housing. So highly recommend continuous monitoring and look at the opportunities that is a good fit and bid for them. Our process is very transparent in terms of the review. We don't look at who's bidding. We look at what is the quality of the response, and that's basically what we do in the evaluation. So it's really the onus is on the small business to make sure that they monitor and they respond and they position themselves to deliver for the government. So hope that's clear.
No, absolutely, Omar. And having worked with Hud and Ginny in the past, I know you all are very small business friendly and very open to even inviting some of the small businesses in some of the larger town halls that happen so that we can get the information from within. So, and I've had the privilege to attend some of those town halls. So
no, absolutely. And we just had one about 2 months ago. Right. And also what we have seen is small business teaming up with larger business. This is something I have seen also, where you can bring a big outfit to support you, especially if the tasking is huge, that you cannot do it as a small business, that you don't have the staff to accommodate or the skill set. You can look to partnership, and I have seen that also come in to Jenny May and Hud. So hope that helps.
Okay, thanks. Atif, your thoughts on?
Yeah, so from a small business perspective, right, Red Hat is completely channel driven. We do all our business through our partners. We never really do direct contracts with government. Being an open source company, we are very, very focused on the wellness of the community, and the small business or the system integrator community that exists, we are very cognizant towards that. We want to make sure that it's a meritocracy. So we love partnering with all kind of organizations out there. Specifically to small business, I would say, like, here's what, if I was still running in a small business, this is what I would do. You guys are specifically focused on few organizations, right? Just because of being small, wherever your relationships are, you focus on those organizations and you understand the business of that organization. I would say reach out to Red Hat counterpart that covers that organization and proactively do a brainstorming session. Hey, I know this is where the organization is going, this is where the challenges are. What can we do together to offer something compelling to the organization that moves their mission forward? Right? Proactively figure out, don't wait for RFP, right? And then try to figure out, create the opportunity. Because you guys are in the account, you have the relationship, work with some of the industry leaders that Red Hat has from a technology perspective, but we know where the Kubernetes is going, we know where open source is going, and bring that culture and that thought process to the organization and set your journey yourself. So that's what I would recommend to do.
Great, thank you very much. So I know we are out of time, but I do want to give 5 minutes for question and answer. So if anyone has any questions, please go ahead. We started late, so I have the power to extend this by 5 minutes.
Hi, I'm Srini Baireddy. This is for, I think, probably Omar. How much of this cross-agency collaboration that you use, not from the operational or functional aspect, but sharing the best practices when it comes to hybrid cloud, multi-cloud, if someone else has already implemented that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think we start doing that a lot. I mean, we are collaborating with agencies that have similar interests in data, in cloud adoption, also in governance, we do that, in innovation. I mean, I am involved with a couple of federal agencies in the concept of innovation, the culture of innovation. And we are also start working on a POC that will involve multiple agencies, like especially on the blockchain, because we see that this is something that will bring in other partners from the federal space. So yes, we are doing that, and it's a very I mean, they are very receptive to what we are pushing, and sometimes we take the leadership, sometimes we ask other departments to take the leadership, but it's been working very nicely for us.
Any other questions? Yes, David.
So whenever you're talking about trying to implement emerging or new technologies into government, right? That's always an interesting topic, and there's a lot of ways you can get very involved in just speaking to the technology itself. But one thing that I like that Arif started to bring up was, it's not just how do we go to the cloud and let's just build a cloud environment, but rather how do we actually service, make cloud be useful back to the business, right? Build, create an environment where we can automate and deliver faster. Tony spoke to it as well when he was giving the examples of ARS or FNS and HHS working together to deliver value back to that constituent. I think about someone in Omar's situation where you're working with emerging technology and trying to find out how do we bring this into the business, but how do you make sure that conversation, and your customers are both, to a certain degree, you're working with the government and with the financial institutions, not always directly the taxpayer, but to ultimately benefit that person. And so when each one of you are looking at these emerging technologies, like how do you ensure that you keep that customer focus to make sure that you're ultimately going to deliver value and not just bring in new tech for the sake of doing something different?
Sure. So I think it's understanding the business, David, and understanding what their challenges are and where they want to go from a modernization or a digitization perspective. I often took on projects where when there was a challenge that were faced, I would start at the ground level, not at the, we sit in, I sat in the Witten building and we'd kind of look broadly across USDA. But if there was a challenge, I'd go down to a county office and sit down with them and talk about what they faced and what issues they were having. I went out and met with farmers, actually got to drive a tractor a few times, which was great, and talked to the farmers about what did they need differently. Understanding the business and the impact that you're having from those programs and how it impacts the citizens that you're serving, I think is the most crucial thing that you do. So,
excellent question. I think for me that's the challenge I have in terms of the emerging technologies out there, what we know about and what we don't know about. So that's something that I constantly check and make sure that I'm getting the feedback and the inputs from small business, from partners. But to your question, where does it start? I mean, when you bring technology, it starts with a pain point that I'm trying to address. So if our program offices, the business, come with a pain point, then that is exactly the starting point for me. I try to address that either by process change or by bringing technology that can help with resolving that challenge. So it always starts with the business. But for me, definitely, I have the opportunity to look at the new trends, the new technology, AI, blockchain, machine learning, robotics, the RPA, virtual reality. All of this is in my preview, and I can check. But we cannot just bring a technology for the sake of technology. It has to address a very specific pain point or a demand from the business. So for me to be able to invest in it, again, those are taxpayers' money, and we need to be careful. So it has to be well documented why we're doing it. And that is what the Innovation Lab does. Make sure that technology is properly ushered in, and also we assess the impact of the adoption of this technology, the impact of it in our current landscape. And that's the discussion we have internally at Ginnie Mae. So that's a good point.
Great.
So,
go ahead.
Yeah, it's a great question, actually. And I really like the question. Like, if you think about cloud right now, even in this panel, we're talking about how cloud can solve, all kind of problems for us. The reality is, what I've seen, a lot of customers running away from the cloud, going back to on-premise, because they didn't realize it was going to cost them this much when they got the bill, right? And they already had CapEx investment, so they're like, why am I not running it on already hardware that I own and I got managed? So your point is very well made. It's like, hey, we tend to be, running after new hot shiny object. We have the shiny object syndrome, right? We had it with big data, we had it with now cloud, we had with a lot of other things, AI, ML. I think it's incumbent on us to engage with our customers in a value stream manner. So you want to adopt, say, AI, ML, blockchain, Omar mentioning. Okay, what is the value that we are trying to deliver? And engage from a consulting perspective on identifying the processes that need to be reinvented, the cultural element that needs to be addressed, and the business process that needs to be maybe re-engineered to drive the value. Less about implementing just technology, because you got to first figure out what are the things that I'm changing as part of this technology, and what's the impact going to be, and what's the impact to the people specifically, because the most project fail because of microaggressions. my job is not secure anymore. So I think we need to approach it from a value stream perspective, value mapping of every activity that we are doing, and continuously check back with our sponsors and say, like, this is where you want to go, right? That's what I would say.
Great, thank you, Atif. And I know I'm definitely getting flagged now to end this panel. So, but you know, all the panelists are still here. So if you all want to engage with them later, there's a coffee break. So please do so. But with that, thank you so much, everyone, for once again being a part of Thai DC's panel. And Omar, thank you especially to you. And Dan, actually, you both have supported Thai before also. So thank you so much for that. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks.